This is Vine Street, and it's the street that the church is on that we went to when I was growing up. This was a TV sales shop, and they repaired TVs. I can't remember what it was called. That's John Deere down there. This is where a place that you could get sandwiches and drinks and so forth, ice cream. Anyway, it wasn't like that back then. It was just a regular sandwich shop. So I'll walk over here by it. The people that owned this TV shop owned this house here. At least that was the way I recall it. The brick veneer was put on the building. It was one of the last big remods before they sold it and moved on to another location, built a new church, smaller than that one, on a bigger lot. But the problem there has been that population or attendance has dwindled to the point it's hardly anyone coming there at all. This one looks like it could use some repairs. The roof is in really bad shape. This is the church or the location where my grandfather, Emery L. Cook, came it's probably the late 20s to become the pastor of this church. Problem being that the Depression hit in 29, and so there wasn't much income in the church, and so they had to just kind of live the best they could. Dad had a paper route, and I don't know what the rest of them did, but anyway, they grew vegetables and garden stuff over in what was called the Central Addition area, which is, there's a park over there now. Not really sure how they got over to it, but back in those days, it was kind of an island kind of thing back then. Anyway, that's where they grew vegetables, garden stuff. Building was not as big. Originally, it was from where the eaves come down, right about in the center of the picture there. There was just a small little thing there as an entryway and so forth into the back. And the front part of it was some large steps that went up in the doorway there. And the second peaked portion there was where the old steps used to be. that addition was probably done about 1951, 52, somewhere along in there. This back here is where they used to have the ice cream socials. They had a pretty large parking lot for that. And those sort of things were pretty popular back then. They were somewhat money makers. Just kind of seemed like after they built that new addition and so forth, for some reason or another, things started going downhill. To the point that it used to be when there was a Sunday service, and many times they would have to put out chairs in the aisle or in the main aisleways. I'm sure if the fire department had come, they would probably have told them to close the doors or something, keep people out. But anyway, that was a remembrance I had of that particular time. It was more evangelical back in those days, and as time went along, and particularly after the addition was put on, the brick part here was not part of that addition. That was made many years after. Anyway, the population of the church just kind of started dwindling, and they couldn't seem to get it to come back. I always kind of attributed it to the kind of ministers that they brought in. But that was my own personal take on it. Anyway, panning around the neighborhood here, most of these houses were pretty much the way they were back then. I remember a girl in Roger's class who was a couple of years older than me lived in that house. I think her last name was Paris. Vicky Paris, I think. This is Vine Street. It was, at that time, a much bigger thoroughfare than it is now. A lot more cars. As I recall, it was brick. Looks like it's asphalt now. Panning down that way is John Deere. A few of the people in the church worked there, but a pretty large portion of the church worked at Morrell Meat Packing Plant, and it closed about 1973, I think. I worked there before I got out of the Army, and it closed after I went back to grad school. So that would have been 71. So it apparently closed the summer of 1971. But that's the John Deere there. Anyway, so much for. I'm going to walk down to the corner and see if some of the if there's anything left of what I recall being on. This is Madison coming up here. There was a gas station on both corners. Looks like it still is, but only one of them is still functioning as a fix-it shop. Well, looking down the street there, it would appear that where that kind of gravel area there next to the fence was where Werico gas station was that Royce worked at, and it's no longer there. This building was a grocery store. And Mike worked there when he was in high school. This is one of the legs of Rogers paper route at the very end of Madison. He didn't have very many houses out this far. Finley is about 2 blocks over. Anyway, kind of a shot of this area.